Hi there, folks. It's David Ostriker in sunny Karmiel. Here in the Galilee, it is really sunny and really warm. It's cooled off to just under 100 degrees centigrade, although when you look at the computer, it says it feels like 104. It's hot. It's a good time to be drinking water. And I probably won't stay out here too long right now as we get ready for Shabbos, the Shabbos of SHELACH. This Shabbos is a very troubling Shabbos. It continues the descent that had begun in the previous Shabbos of the complainers and Miriam and Aaron. What's the complaint? The Jews are standing 2 weeks' march outside of Israel, outside of the land of Canaan. And when they enter, they will be able to conquer the land. That's the promise that God made to the Jews in the Midbar. And yet, it will be 40 years, well 39, before they actually achieve this. What happened? In preparation for the attack and conquest of the land of Israel, the people and Moshe chose to send spies into the land to reconnoiter the land, to look for the strengths and weaknesses of the land. These were not ordinary spies. Spies are generally people who blend in. They're not, quote, outstanding in their field. In fact, they should not be noticeable. And they should not be famous either. And they should leave quietly into the night and arrive at the target land, do their analysis, and leave quietly back to report their findings. This is not what happened in this case. They chose the leaders, the most important and the most famous people of each tribe to send, including Caleb and Joshua. Rather than do it quietly, they made big speeches about what they're off to do and what they're going to achieve. Their departure was public and exciting. They weren't specifically military leaders, with the exception of Joshua. I would say that it would be better to have called them tourists. People who are traveling and looking around at what there is. What was their report? They came back with a report that was very, very impressive. They said this land is a land that has tremendous bounty to it. The grapes are the size of watermelons. But there are a few drawbacks. First of all, everybody seems to be dying there. We don't know what causes it, but it's a concern whether we could survive there. Second of all, the people who survive there are not normal people. They are literally giants. Huge, huge people. So much so that when we looked at ourselves and we looked at them, we felt like in our own eyes we were grasshoppers. So the reality is, even though it's a wonderful land, there's no way we're going to get it. So, let's give up this plan. And that night, the people all wept and cried that, we've left Egypt and what are we doing? We're stuck here in the wilderness. God said, you will not inherit this land. I will keep my promise, but it will not be to you. It will be to the next generation. Your generation, which has rejected my land, will be rejected by it as well. You will never enter the land. You will die here in the Midbar. And 40 years later, really 39 plus, the next generation entered the land. The generation that was being addressed that night died in the wilderness at a rate of 15,000 every Tisha B'Av, the Medrash tells us, every 9th of Av. And this day in which they cried because they said God would not or could not give us the land. On this day, it was the 9th of Av, which is the day that both temples were destroyed. It was the day at the beginning of the First World War. It was a tragic, tragic event in Jewish history, for which, in many ways, we still suffer. But this tragedy, bit by bit, is being remedied. After 2,000 years, we now have sovereignty here in the land, and we should be glad of it. But we still have the same problem. When you wake up in the morning and you look at the news, you say, why is this happening? What's going on here? You know, so much good is happening. Why are we feeling dread? Real dread. And I think the answer is relatively simple. Throughout Jewish history, we have had two voices whispering in our ears. It's not the devil. One voice is the voice of the nations, the voice of Rome, the voice of Pharaoh, the voice of Greece, Babylon, Assyria, Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, today Iran. And that voice says, you're a little people, you're a weak people, you're a people who stole everything you have, didn't earn it, right? You're morally corrupt and you spread corruption, right? And this is the sound of the nations. Then there's another voice, a soft, quiet voice, but a very important voice. It is the voice of the Ribbono Shel Olam, the voice of the Master of the universe, the voice of the Creator of all, who took Abraham as his nation. And he said, through you, plan B, plan C. You know, the first generation we had problems with Adam and Chava, we had problems with Cain and Abel, followed by the generation of the flood and the Tower of Babel. It's not been a very smooth ride, so to speak. And God chose no longer to make his message a universal message directly to the people, which did exist up until the Tower of Babel. He chose one person, Abraham, and he said, through you will my plans be completed. Through your children, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and from Yaakov the 12 tribes. This will be my flagship, my nation eventually, that will carry my message persuasively and to make the world a perfect place. We're on the way. It's been a long trip, you know, and it would seem not unlike the trip in the Midbar. We often take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. But we're definitely moving in the right direction. Which voice should we hear? Well, frankly, the loudest voice, and the voice that is most often heard, is the voice which we think of as the voice of the nations, which puts us down. But we've been hearing it so long that we are some of the best vocalists of that voice. And God seems to be acting rather than talking these days. When you look around the world and you see the achievements of this tiny nation everywhere, desalinization, security, cybersecurity, drip irrigation, medical, you know, I don't have to repeat it, you all know the list. You have to realize that the voice we should be listening to is the one who did promise us the land. And he promised us the land many times. And the tragedy of the spies was when they saw this beautiful land, they concluded, This is a promise that either God cannot make and cannot keep, or will not keep. Why? Because they were grasshoppers in their own eyes. They had not observed what was accomplished already. The complete destruction of the superpower of its time. Why would they have these doubts? They would have these doubts because it's credible to have the doubts. You look around you and you say, yeah, we are a small nation. We're not Assyria. We're not Babylon. We're not Rome. We don't have those kind of troops. We're not the Sunni nations, the Iranian Caliphate. We're not the Soviet Russia, the Nazi Reich. It's true, we're just a little people. But we have a secret weapon. And if we listen to that secret weapon, it seems like we can't be beat. But they have a secret weapon too. And that is whispering self-doubt. We mustn't confuse humility with weakness. Humility is a sign of tremendous strength. David, Abraham, Moshe are all described as extremely humble. And yet, they are tremendously strong. So when you hear that voice saying, you don't merit this, analyze it. And if you come to a true conclusion that you do merit it, it doesn't mean you're an egotist. It means you've been given a responsibility, a mission to take hold of and to succeed with. So don't have false modesty. Have real modesty, which comes from a knowledge that I've been given a gift, not created the gift, I've been given a gift, and I can function with it and maximize it. That's not ego. That is, call it self-esteem. True leadership has modesty attached to it. True leadership grants recognition to those in the team. True leadership doesn't need covet, doesn't need honor, needs accomplishment. So as you go through this time, on a small level, remember your own accomplishments and how critical they are and how they change other people's lives for the better. And on a macro level, do not doubt the gift of the state of Israel, the land of Israel, that God gave to us. Do not question whether it belongs to us or not. Do not listen to the whisperers. Look around you. The reason we are what we are today is not just because we're smart or patriotic or brave. It's because it's miraculous. Be thankful for that. Remember from whence the miracle came. Good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom from the Galilee, the warm north of Israel. Wishing you a great Shabbos, a Shabbos of confidence, a Shabbos of power, a Shabbos of true humility. See you next week.